questions.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tony. How are you?
How you doing, Tony?
Fantastic. How are you all?
Good, good. Thank you.
Happy
Is that
New
Tony
Year.
Tabor?
That's
Good morning.
the one and only, the
Let me see
great
your
one.
face, Tony. There we go.
Making fun of me again.
No, I just want to see your lovely face. That's all.
Thanks, Dee.
We hide behind the camera, you know.
You know what? Sometimes I'm not camera ready.
We
That's
know.
not true, Tony. You're always camera ready, Tony. You're
Really?
always camera ready.
Exactly.
Really.
Oh, my
Exactly.
friends.
The legends are always ready to go at the drop of a hat.
I think maybe we could just give it a few more minutes, Daryl, if you're okay with that. I see that Holly Mitchell's office has a couple of people who are going to attend, and I don't see them on yet. So if we could give them a few minutes.
Our wonderful friends. Yes, let's give them a minute, huh?
Thank you.
I thought about you, Tony. I was in Houston for a funeral just at the beginning of last month with a whole bunch of East Texas people.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to touch bases with you. Some other names, some McMichael's name came up the other day.
Mhm.
And I know you know, I'm sure your mom knows a lot of my relatives there in Lufkin and
Well, I thought it was funny because as soon as I mentioned your mother's name, she just went on about her and her sister.
Oh,
They went to Texas College. They didn't go to Prairie View.
oh yeah, right. Yeah, God, it's a small world.
Yeah, really.
So the team, Mark and Jesse worked on this with you, correct, Angela? The primary task force, as I called them. I just came up with that task force thing. I don't know if that's really
Well,
what it is.
yeah.
Perfect name, Daryl. Yes, that's correct. Mark and Jesse were.
Well, I want to just thank them as well for their initiative and commitment to providing service to the community and engaging with our utility service provider, Southern California Edison. So thank you all for joining in on the team, Jesse and Mark.
No problem. More than welcome.
There's Mark. Okay, I see.
And I see that Lily from Supervisor Mitchell's office is here, as is Isela.
Okay.
So good morning to
Welcome.
both of you. Yes.
Welcome. I've been trying to get everybody to say Isela.
Isela. He has Isela. He
Been working
has.
on that for everybody, Isela. You should know I'm working on making sure your
Hey,
name is
Daryl.
properly said.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be joining today.
Morning.
Happy New
He's
Year.
on the move.
Happy New Year.
apparently. So,
Okay, well, I'm just here, folks. Most of you know me as president of UHA, so I can go ahead and just make a quick introduction if you're ready, Angela, and then turn it over
Yes.
to the experts.
Yes, we're ready.
Yeah, so I just want to again, now that we've got everybody in the room, thank them again, the team that put this together. Angela and Mark and Jesse, raise your hands so everybody knows you who don't already know you. And our other two team members and co-founders of the organization who also works on the land use committee, who always help, John Heath and Tony Tabor, are also, of course, in the house. John has the new wonderful background for UHA, so John is always on point with that. So thank you for being here, everyone. And we organized this initially from a general meeting when Jesse brought up some concerns about being able to effectively implement solar and the costs involved into it and the difficulty involved in doing so. And so we figured if she was having a problem, perhaps others are having problems. And Angela took the initiative then to work with those two to engage with Southern California Edison, and David Ford, who so graciously reached out to us and was ready to help us learn more about how they function and how they operate. And so this is an opportunity for the community to talk directly to Southern California Edison, to learn about infrastructure funding, to learn about electrical vehicle stations installed residentially for those of you who have or intend to get electric vehicles, solar panels, and the like. And so I will not go any further into that and mess it up and let the experts who know about this talk about it. So I'm going to turn it over, Angela, to you and let you introduce Mr. Ford and the other participants in this meeting. And I'm going to sit back and enjoy. So thank you very much, everyone.
So thank you very much, Daryl. And as you said, this meeting came about because of a question that Jesse actually had at our one of our meetings, and we looked into it a little bit further. And as you said, other people have the same questions. And so I reached out to David Ford, and he was so graciously said that he would come to our meeting today and speak with regards to SCE and electric and solar panels and electric vehicles. And I also reached out to Holly Mitchell's office, and Lily, who is over infrastructure, came today, and Isela, who is over homelessness, is here as well. So I'm going to now turn it, and thank you for the committee members again, Jesse and Mark, and of course, always John and Tony. And I'm going to turn it over to David, and I'm going to let him kind of give an overview and then a discussion. Just to set out the format, we put out a question. We put out a notice to all of the members to ask questions, and we compiled those questions and we sent those questions to David so that he could make sure that he had all of the answers prior to this meeting today. So there may be other questions that come up, and that's fine. We can ask them. But the format that we'd like to do at this point is to kind of go through the questions that we originally sent, and we could have discussions on those, and David will expound on those if he needs to. And I think we're going to have John put up the questions and the answers that we received from David. So without further ado, David, take over.
Well, first of all, it's a real privilege and a pleasure to meet with the HOA this morning. I've had a long tenure of engagement with the Windsor Hills area. I think there's a lady that I had met several years ago by the name of Mrs. Oates, and I had came to a couple of the HOA meetings, and y'all put on a pretty good spread of food as well at those meetings. And since then, I haven't been invited back, and I'm hoping it's because of COVID. It's not because I ate too much. But I just want to say thank you. John and I have had multiple conversations over the years, and I've always been impressed and had the privilege to have dialogue with him. And just recently meeting Angela, she is a really an engaged person with your HOA who, I mean, the questions that y'all put together are phenomenal. And I just want to say that I'm going to attempt to answer as many as I can. What I can't answer, we definitely will get back with the group with another response. But I also want to acknowledge Supervisor Holly Mitchell staff who's on the call. Lily, I've worked with her regularly, and Ilsa as well, and other members of the second district staff. And it's really a partnership that we have between Edison and the Board of Supervisors, and just really enjoy that that collaboration and working together to address constituent and customer issues. A little bit of background about myself. I've been at Edison now for 25 years, moved here from Kentucky. So you're going to get a little bit of that voice of accent throughout this conversation. But my role and responsibility at Edison, I'm responsible for the relationship and engagement with LA County, LA City, and Metro. So, you know, with the 10 million residents that live in LA County, and then unincorporated, and then we don't really span too much into the city of Los Angeles. Of course, y'all know that is the utility that serves those customers is DWP. But Edison's been in business for over 130 years. We have about, we span across about 50,000 square miles of territory in California, from central to coastal and Southern California. Our customer base on business customers is about 5 million, and about roughly around 15 million residential customers. You know, and that makes up about 119,000 miles of transmission and distribution lines with transformers, switch gears, and underground, below ground, overhead, below ground transformers. Our whole objective at Edison is really providing safe and reliable electricity, moving a lot away from the fossil fuels, in which we have done over the years, to more of a cleaner grid. And our fuel mix in generation is made up of geothermal, biomass, solar, wind, and some hydro. So anybody have any questions so far? So why don't we go ahead and dive into these questions? And I want to make this a two-way conversation. I just don't want to talk, and you know, it makes it a lot easier for us to go through these questions, and it may not be that we respond to all the questions today, given the time that we have, but I want to needle into some of these that are important to this group, and feel free to ask me, you know, questions that are not on this sheet of questions and answers. So if John or you and Angela. So the first question is the rationale of the blanket for a blanket requirement for underground conduit to be replaced when the main service panel is replaced. And does anybody have any questions about, because I don't want to just go verbatim and read and the question and the response, but if you have some questions about that, then I think it'd be better to get into the dialogue. I think Jesse, Miss Jessie, I think you have a question on that one. And you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, number 1 and 2 were actually questions that I asked you in October, and I'm kind of bothered because they're not really answered here. The first one is kind of, there's a disingenuous answer here when you say, excuse me?
That's not me.
Oh, go ahead.
When you say that going from, if you go from 100 amp, you don't have to trench. That's not exactly true. Anytime you touch the panel, and if you're going to a new solar installation, the installer will want to switch out the panel, even if it's a like for like amperage. Now, if that weren't true, I would have had solar 7 years ago, and I would be well on my way to payback. So it's kind of disingenuous for you to say that you really don't have to do it if you stay at 100 amp. The other thing is, if you say that you need a 3-inch conduit to go to a higher amperage, 150 or whatever, it says sometimes you can't pull it very far. Well, how do you know how far? The problem with this policy is that it doesn't really take into consideration the actual circumstances on the property. You are telling people that they have to upgrade with a kind of sight unseen. You don't actually know that that's true. And I'm very bothered about this because in my case, shortly after they told me that I needed a new conduit, SCE pulled a new cable through the old conduit because of SCE's problems. So I think that we need a better kind of evaluation of when it's needed and what you do about it and who pays for all of this trenching. I don't mind when somebody says to me, you have to do something on your property. I would be happy to do this from the curb to the panel. If you tell me that it is totally my responsibility to dig up the street, to find to get with Doty Brothers or whoever, and pay an exorbitant amount to do that, I don't think that's acceptable. And I think you're kind of being false about your intent to support the solar initiatives. And the second thing that I asked is, what do you have about, you didn't answer the second question at all. I asked it in October and we still don't have an answer. Your answer to the second question has zero to do with the question, which is, what do you know about the number of people who have been affected by this? Because I know lots of people who have been, and we cannot address a problem and get a solution for people unless we have an idea about the scope of the problem. And Edison doesn't seem to be interested in finding out. That's my question. That's me.
I think your point is well taken. If a customer has a 100 amp panel and they're going like for like, not relocating the panel, the conduit, basically there's no upgrade required if they're going 100 amp panel to another 100 amp panel. But if they're relocating the panel to another location, then in some cases, undergrounding may be required. And it's a case-by-case basis.
No, that isn't what happened in my case, because I spent a lot of time talking to a whole lot of people. And this lady who was the area construction manager made it very clear, if you touch the panel at all, you have to trench. Now, maybe something has changed in the last 4 years, because this was 7 years ago, and I spent another 3 years squabbling with people about it. But you're not consistent about this policy, and I know it.
So I guess the question I have right now is, are you still looking at doing some upgrade at your house?
The only upgrade I want to do is solar. I was happy to do 100. I would, when they said, well, we can also upgrade to 100 amp, 150 at the same time. I said, fine. When we found out that would require trenching, we went back and said, we will just do like for like. And we were told no. And the answer is yes, I am still interested in solar. The more longer I deal with this, the more I see that it is a problem. My next door neighbor just ran into the very same problem 2 months ago. Very same problem. And the people around the corner tell me the same thing. They looked into it and it is too expensive. So if you are not going to look at the actual property and see what the actual requirements are, you're really an obstacle to people going solar.
So here's what I would like to recommend is and if you would like to provide John or Angela, or I think you may have my information, send me your address. I will join a planner out to come out to your house, or a supervisor of planning to come out and talk to you and other neighbors about this policy, to see what options that are available. I'd rather do that. And I know that the conversations we had was during probably at the peak of COVID, with a lot of changes going on, and you probably did not get the answer that you wanted. So I'd like to work with you on resolving this issue and come up with a solution that will work for you and other residents who might be upgrading their panel for various reasons at their house. Would that work? Because
Yes,
I don't think I'm going to be able to answer the question on this call. I really don't think I'm going to be able to, because I'd rather have someone from our planning department come out with someone, a manager or supervisor, who would be able to address this with a solution, or seeing if there's any modifications that we can make in this case.
okay, I'm going to do that. I'm very interested, obviously, in doing what I have to do to get solar. But the longer that this goes on, the more that I see that it is not an individual problem. I mean, and so, then there needs to be some kind of coordinated approach to it. There's no sense in my next door neighbor having to pay to trench, and I have to pay to trench when our panels are literally probably 20 feet apart. Theirs is on one side of the house. Ours is on the same side, on the other side, on one side of the property line, ours is on the same. And there needs to be some kind of approach that makes this feasible. The other thing is that I've heard of people who've only had to pay from the curb to their panel. And the power company picked up whatever had to be done from the vault to the curb, which makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, that I don't have a problem with having to pay something, but I don't think that this is reasonable. And I don't think we want to go about it so that everybody kind of secretly makes deals.
Yeah.
That's not good for the neighborhood, and it's not good for the state policy of going solar.
Yeah, there needs to be some consistency, and I'd really like to unbutton that issue that you're dealing with. And I apologize that you did not get the response. And I will say this, that we weren't working in a normal world at the peak of COVID. And, there's a lot of movement and people not coming into the office because of COVID, and looks like we're opening up now to more engagement. Now, this might have been right before the start of COVID when we talked, and then leading into that. But I assure you that in the next 2 weeks, we'll get somebody to meet with you and address this.
Well, I think that the other thing is that I think that Edison has work to do with the second question, which is about data. We can't deal with a problem with having actual data. And I understand that you may not have the answers to that at hand, but you do have the data to know how many people in these zip codes have actually been affected by this policy in some way. And nobody seems to care to find it. So that's my thing. Somebody else can talk.
Yeah, this is Mark.
If I may, just
okay.
really quickly, David, if you're gonna have someone go out to Jesse's house, I'd like to be there, because what we want to do from this point on is everything that's done in the neighborhood, we want to document it so that we can introduce that consistency that we're talking about. We do want, whatever happens or whatever the findings are, we want them to be consistent. We want everyone to know what that is. So
Okay.
if I'm not sure if you want to contact me or contact Jesse directly, either way, if you could CC both of us so that we both know when you're going to be there, so that we can again kind of start documenting going forward how this is handled. And Jesse's question about the data, that may be something that you can answer not at this meeting, but we are really concerned about, how many people have tried to do the same work that Jesse is talking about, and how many people have not been able to because of kind of these roadblocks that she's run into. So that again can be something that can be answered offline perhaps, but there should be a data set for that so that we can take a look at that. And then I'll be quiet here. And I know that Mark had a question, and the gentleman you have that says iPad, I'm not sure of your name there. You have your hand up?
Yeah, actually, Angela, iPad, and we'd appreciate getting your name, sir. His hand was up before Mark, and then I see Lily
Trying to
from
figure out how to
Supervisor
do that.
Mitchell's office. It's okay. What's your name, sir?
George Burkhart.
Go ahead, Mr. Burkhardt.
I recently applied for the solar installation, went through the whole process, got down to permitting. SCE comes out and says, I've got a 200 amp panel, which was put in with a permit and reviewed by SCE. So when they came out to spot it, they said, well, you need the 3-inch conduit. So I'm saying, well, why wasn't that I told that before they authorized me putting in the 200 amp panel? I could have left it alone. And now I'm stuck because it's the trenching, and the cost is too exuberant for me to do it. I'm disappointed in Edison approving the panel without letting me know that a 3-inch would be required in the future. I mean, if that was the point, why put the 200 amp on?
Okay, I didn't catch your name, sir, but this disturbs me that you had that type of experience. Can you, Angela or John, can y'all get his info? If you can put your information in the chat or provide it to Angela and John, your contact information, and I will, when we make that visit to Miss Jessie, we'll also have you on that same visit. If not that day, it'll be another day.
Okay, that's fine.
I am disturbed about that, because that you should have been told about that up front after you made that investment.
Yep. Okay.
And I apologize. I sincerely apologize. That was that just should not have gone down that way. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to get you guys my information. I'm not sure how to do that.
Well, do you want to? I'm gonna give you my information.
Okay.
Then you can contact me directly. My cell number is I'll wait till you get a pen and piece of paper.
I've got one.
My cell number is and I hope everybody doesn't call me all at one time. And please don't redistribute this, because I do have a lot going on, and I can't always.
Well, you know what, Mr. Ford, before you do that, because we are live streaming on YouTube, so it's going to go out to the universe, and this will be repeated. So maybe you want to just either post your email in the chat, or Mr. Burkhart can email us at info@uhawhvp.org.
Okay, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that then? That would be better.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you, John.
Yep. Mark, you had your hand up, and then Lily. Thanks, Mr. Burkhart.
All righty.
Yes, my question is more specific, but it's general. I think you're going to come up with a lot. This is represented from SCE Southern California Edison, is that you're going to come up with a lot of issues of individual people having problems. I think this is an opportunity when you go out there, as was said before, is not to come with a customized solution for any individual or any special deal for individuals, because I've gotten special deals from other utility people that my neighbors haven't gotten. What we need to do is when you go out there, learn from that, so we come up with a repeatable, definable, reliable process to address these types of projects, so that that can be a process that's very clear to all the SCE implementers, and therefore that process can be put in writing, put on your website, so that when, say, somebody wants to put in solar and or wants to upgrade a panel, they go to let's say the residential power panel website, And there's a document there that lays out all the processes, what you need to put up in front so that you get the proper information to SCC, and they tell you these are the steps you need to go through. So there's no mystery, there's no customizations, there's no preferential treatment by some people or others. So that's what I think we want to get through regarding all these questions. So this is not just I'm going to go to this person and solve their problem. You're going to develop a process that's accessible that everybody can use. That's all I have to say.
You know, we have various rules, Rule 16, Rule 17, Rule 21. I'm not going to go into full details, but there is a standard process and procedure that the PUC mandates that we follow by. I'm just not sure what happened in these cases. And these could be one-offs, I'm not sure, but it doesn't sound like that there's something that I'm not.
The process is broken. The process is broken.
Yeah.
But the process needs to be, how can I say, it needs to be clear. It needs to be in writing.
Well, there is a process in writing, but I just don't know why there's a deviation in these cases. And
I guess my question is, does the residents have visibility on that process? Is there a PDF on a website saying this is the process by which you upgrade a panel? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, we can get that. We can get that.
Okay.
Definitely.
It needs to be a website that people can access, and so there's no mystery.
Yeah.
Not just for the panel, but for all these processes and all these issues.
Yeah, Mark, as I was saying, you know, we're a company that's been in business for over 130 years. We're going to have processes and procedures in place. And I assure you, in this case, this was, I don't know what happened. And I'm going to dig into it. And I just want y'all to instill some confidence in me to come up with
confidence has to be earned. I mean, just to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hearing stuff that it's not just you as utilities, other utilities got these same issues.
I totally agree.
Where the residents don't have visibility in the process. That's the key. Because if we have visibility in the process, then we can track the process. And therefore we don't get off the process. But that's all I have to say. I don't want to hold up the meeting. Keep going.
Okay. I will make sure that y'all get that information as well. But I just wanted to, I do want to address the gentleman earlier and Miss Jessie, or any other issues that come up. We want to make sure that these are addressed. So let's go to the question number 3. And I'm just basically
before you do that, David, I know Lily from Supervisor Mitchell's office had her hand up, so we want to give her an opportunity. Go ahead, Lily.
Thanks, John. And I lowered my hand because Mark and I are on the same page that I before this meeting went onto SoCal Edison's website to try and figure out if you've got like a step-by-step cheat sheet of the questions to consider before you start. You know, there's certainly information online about solar, but I think to Mark's point, something that's a bit robust. I mean, it sounds like the folks on this call are similar to me. I'm trying to do a bunch of home renovation projects in my own home, and I need all of the information at once for me to even decide, like, is this worth it, right? So I think Mark's point is a really good one. To just take a very quick step back, because I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. I'm Lily O'Brien, and I am Supervisor Mitchell's Senior Deputy on Infrastructure. I have the great privilege of working with Mr. Ford on various things that come up. And so for the folks on this call, we'll continue to do that. Mr. Ford's been doing this a long time, and he's a great partner to our office. And I think you can tell from him being here that it's more than just a job for him showing up on a Saturday. It's a passion for him to represent SoCal Edison. So I think a lot of what's raised is just a lack of upfront information on how the process should work, the questions to consider, the things you want to avoid, like if I don't have to do a trench, like what is it that I can do ahead of time? So I think these are all really good questions. And David, if you don't mind, I'd like to just stay engaged on the information that SoCal Edison can pull together for constituents. And I'm sure that the folks here are not alone in the second district, and that there are probably a lot of folks that are SoCal Edison customers that have similar questions. And this is something we want LA to do, so we should make it really transparent and obvious in how to do it. So appreciate being part of the discussion, and all of that is to say, I wholeheartedly agree with Mark and align myself with Mark's suggestions on I think kind of a clear, really detailed guide. And if that's something that the CPUC already has that we can repurpose for SoCal Edison customers, I whatever our office can do to support that, we would like to. All right, thanks all.
Thank you, Lily. Okay, so this question number 3, talking about grid security, we get thousands of hits on our system on a regular basis on cybersecurity. We have a very robust, dedicated team to deal with system security, and it's constantly being monitored. Each individual working for Edison, we go through monthly tests on phishing with emails. The hits come from all over the world. And in most cases, when it comes to energy security, it's dealing with transmission and not distribution. More of the large generation and transmissions like substations. Our system is bulk power system on transmission is 500 kV, and it drops down to 220, and then subtransmission is 66 kV. Most of your distribution lines, we have a few 33 kVs, but more are 16, 12, and 4 on circuit voltage. Is SCE concerned about utilizing existing condo upgrades? What would be a possibility of allocating funding? Well, when it comes to funding and upgrades, we have in the reliability reports, which you can go online at our outage center. And I think, Angela, you probably have that information. You could put that online, and everyone can look at the reliability report for every city that we have in our service territory and in all 5 supervised rural districts. And we regularly monitor the circuits to determine the worst performing circuit, what circuit has a frequency of outages, and why these outages are occurring, whether it's animals, whether it's wind related, weather related, or system failure. But the system security is vitally a front and center to our operation. If anybody has any questions, and I hope I answered that to the best of my ability. Okay. This next question was the purpose of the recent planned outages, and how far advanced neighbors notified of planned outages. There are multiple circuits running through this area. You have the Windsor Hills substation and Inglewood substation, and both substations have anywhere the Windsor Hills substation circuits make up about 7, and then the Inglewood substation circuits make up of about looks like about 15 that serve that entire area of Windsor Hills, La Cienega, Slauson, in that particular area. There's a couple of areas over there that I'm going to ask the company to look at addressing upgrades on that are 4 kV circuits to go up to 16 kV. Now, I don't know what the timeline will be on this, but this is something that I will push for capital projects to for our folks in engineering and distribution to take a look to see if there's the frequency of outages, the irregularity of outages on these circuits to ensure that we're addressing reliability issues and doing what's necessary to upgrade our equipment so that customers can continue to have safe and reliable electricity. The other question, there's 2 parts of this question, was about the planned outages, and then, you know, for most cases, how we respond to those is 7 to 10 day advance notification to customers, and customers can sign up for outage notification. They can get a text, they can get an email, and these notifications also can be a voice message. When you go into My Edison and sign up to set up that account where you can receive notifications ongoing. For those customers that are on medical baseline or critical care, particularly the customers on critical care, we will make a door knock before we turn off power at those customer sites. But we have to know that these customers are on critical care for us to be able to do that. There's a couple hands up, so I'll address some questions right now.
Angela, you want to?
Yeah, I just had a question. I had a question on you said there was an area that has 4 kV, and you're going to actively ask for it to be upgraded to 16 kV, and I missed where you said that was.
Well, there are multiple circuits over there that are, and I can't, you know, this will be an exploring question that I'll ask operations to see if these circuits are on our, I guess, work schedule for upgrades. And many times there's various factors that would go into us on how we would schedule an upgrade on a circuit. And that goes into our calculations of frequency of outages, frequency of equipment failure, and the load current load that's on the circuit. And I can share with you offline, Angela, the names of these circuits and where they're at. Now, you actually can see the circuits on our website for the Windsor area, but you would have to know which circuits they are, and I'll provide that information to you. But because this is more of a open forum like this, because of various securities, I don't want to project that on this screen.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I appreciate that. So yeah, and that's fine. You can provide that to me offline, and I can give a general answer just to put on our website. And then my second question is actually under number 5. Is this, I noticed that there is no answer for number 5. So is that basically I guess this is actually answering part of number 5, the capital improvement question that I had?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it kind of cocktailed those into one answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And
Jesse?
yeah,
Yeah, okay. This particular question, number 4, that had to do with the recent outage, we had a major planned outage, which was which extended longer than it had to, than it was predicted. And I understand that. I have no problem with a major planned outage. I think that there's some hubris being exercised by the company, and that you need to tell people more about why you're doing it. Oh, aren't we wonderful? We're improving your service. Well, why does this service have to be improved? And let people know it is rather extensive. I lived through, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, we had terrible service on my street. Every time you turned around, there was an outage, and it was always the same 227 homes. I remember this very clearly. And we all had to be put on generators for 3 days while Edison did whatever. I think they put in new switches and everything. And I'm happy. It was a big operation. We felt that they were responding to a well-known problem, and everybody was satisfied with what happened. This time we had this thing where it was announced, and not everybody got the notice, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But it was like, oh, just trust us. We know what we're doing. I think that when you do a major outage like that, you need to be a little bit more specific, or give some detail about it, so that when what happened, which was that it was supposed to come back, I think it was 3 hours longer than was predicted, or maybe even more. People have an appreciation, this is a really big job. These people are trying to do their stuff. I mean, and people getting all upset because it took a little longer. I wasn't upset at all. I mean, I knew that it was a big thing because it had been announced a long way in advance. But we'll get to the next thing, which is notification, which was clearly not well done. I get email notifications because of something else that happened before with Edison. So I'm on the list to get email notifications. Other people get text, but they don't really, apparently they didn't pay attention to it. And a lot of people, I was really surprised at how many people in my immediate area, just across the street, 2 doors up, whatever, were unaware of what was going on until the night before, or until they didn't get anything. So the notification process has to be improved. And I think that Edison, like a whole lot of companies, is too oriented on the latest and greatest technology. Text messaging is a supplement to traditional customer contact. It cannot be your primary way to contact customers. I don't remember getting an actual mail USPS notification of the outage. It may have happened, but I do know that it was announced well in advance, at least 3 weeks in advance, and we were ready. And I was really appalled by the number of people who weren't. So you need to do a better job with getting to people, especially if you have a neighborhood where half the people are seniors and not that dependent on electronic messaging. And getting to notification, the third thing about notification, there was another thing I was going to say to John and Daryl. You mentioned that people have to be on, that people in critical care get extra notification, that you make there really is outreach to make sure that they know about it. But you have to know that they're on critical care. And maybe that's something for the organization to do, to make sure that when we are notified, this kind of thing comes out as a planned outage, that there's an additional announcement to people. Remember that if you are on critical care, or if you have something, if you really do need, if this is going to create medical problems for you or whatever, you need to notify Edison, because if people don't know that you have that service, then they end up in a real bad shape. But I think that's something for the homeowners association to do, to encourage people who need it to sign up. And notification is not just about outage. We're here with SCE because I have a claim going on right now with Edison that has nothing to do with power, with outages. It has to do with tree trimming and without getting adequate notification. I think that your policies about notification, I talked to the area vegetation manager and he told me what the notification policy is supposed to be, and it clearly wasn't followed. So I think I had real, it's a big fiasco, and Edison is going to end up paying me several $1,000s to fix this. And we've been in this house almost 60 years and I've never had a disaster like this. So I wasn't notified. The people who came did a poor job. I didn't know it until too late. And that's really because your policies weren't followed. And those are my 3 points.
Okay. Ms. Jessie, I want to say again that I apologize for your experience. You know, I know I can't. All I can do is look into this to make sure that these practices and behaviors are not consistent standard or way we do business. And we can do better. We can do better.
Well,
and I know that we can get into a deeper conversation about this, but I want to address this, and I will. If you could provide me the date when that outage occurred, because I'd like to find a little bit more information about it so I can investigate it myself to see why some customers were not notified, why others weren't. I will ask folks that are on this call, and I ask the association to encourage people to sign up for my account. And those who are on critical care to notify me, and I'll get our consumer affairs department to get them enrolled into the care program where they will get advance notifications regarding outages in our operations. And I am, secondly, I apologize for the outage going longer than what it should have. And there should have been some notification out there to residents, letting them know that there was a delay in restoration of service. Not always are we getting adequate information on our website, on our outage center of updates. And, we got work that we need to do on that. And it is being addressed. The challenge going from door to door during COVID was the fact it was COVID. So we had to find ways that we could communicate with customers, but we needed also customers to, support us by putting in information on a digital form in which we were able to respond and provide them updates.
Well, when you're going all through digital, we don't have electricity. We don't have internet. Yeah. We don't have any way to communicate with, and especially if you're on VoIP telephone, you can't even call Edison to hear a recorded message that is 3 hours out of date. Yeah. You have no way to know what's going on. I was not particularly bothered by the fact that it was extended. It would have been better had people understood that it really was a major project.
Okay. Let's go to how much, Angela, I need you to also help me keep track of time, you and John, because I think this call is scheduled to 11:30. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think we're on question number 6.
Okay. So
and one other thing, I wanted to give Lily just a few minutes also toward the end here, but I'll circle back with you. So we're on question number 6. I'll talk with her directly. So we're on question number 6, I think.
Okay. I'm going to leave that up there. Is anybody has any questions about the response on number 6? If not, let's just move down to number 7. And I think we talked about this. We have outages ongoing throughout our system all the time. They could be for 2 or 3 seconds. They could be for several hours. And equipment failure happens, transformers, animals, people, malicious mischief. In most cases, once we are notified that a circuit has locked up, a crew, someone from Edison, a groundman, is dispatched to go out and investigate what the cause of the outage was, and then determine what needs to be done to restore service. In most cases, if they can restore the service themselves, they will. If not, they'll dispatch a crew and they come out and make repairs to restore power. But equipment failure happens throughout our system on a regular basis. But as we can't predict when a circuit's going to lock up because of various reasons of failure. A car hit pole, squirrel, tree limb comes down on a circuit, wind, or other other causes of system failure. If no questions, we'll go to number 8. And I think I addressed this earlier in talking about the circuits that support that area, and I'll take a look at these circuits to see if there's any capital improvement projects that are in the pipeline for 2023 or even 2024 for these circuits that are coming out of those substations that serve this area. What is SCE's? That's number 9. What is SCE's policy of notifying residents of upcoming outages? That's pretty much answered there. Customers are notified 7 days in advance. Customers can sign up to receive the messages, and we talked about that just a few minutes ago. If no one has any questions, let's see here. Please discuss thoughts and benefits of solar panel and light PUCs. Okay. So in reading this, my response, are there any questions from anyone on the response?
David, I haven't studied this closely, but I, like everybody, I did hear about the recent CPUC decision that changed the incentives for residents that install solar. So just a general question, it sounds like the effort is to encourage people to actually, if you're going to do solar, to get battery systems so that you can actually store and sell power back to the utility. Is that a fair assessment of where we are and where this is going?
Yeah, and what we realize that not everybody can afford to go solar. And part of this decision was to make this much more balanced and equitable for folks who can afford solar, shouldn't have to pay the cost for people who can afford solar. So this change in policy, which will take place in April of this year, will, we're looking at how you can maintain a grid system, at your home with backup power as well with solar, which, you just stated. There's more to come on this as this decision unfolds, and I think that we'll see more activity or less activity on this. We support solar. Edison has about 4,000 interconnections a month on solar, but I think that we're getting to a point where, and if you look at the ISO website, you can see the peak of solar on a daily basis in the state of California. That there's lots of solar on the system now, quite a lot of solar on the system. So I think the storage question is vital to be able to harness that power that you don't use and store it into a battery system that you can switch over during off-peak hours at night and run your home, charge your car. Let's go to question 10. Well, I think back to 11.
David, there's a question in the chat. Let me see if I can ask that really quick here. It says, can you please explain the change from NEM 2.0 and the benefits versus NEM 3.0 before, I guess, April 13th? Oh, maybe that's 4-13. I'm not sure.
What I'd like to do is, and I can flag this question,
Okay.
and provide it back to you. Let's just.
Okay, then I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I'll email you this question.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so the next, discuss SCE's thoughts on the benefit of, that's number 11. Sorry. Okay, so adding EV to your home. This is number 11. The response: adding EV to your home is a great way to save money. While EVs have higher sticker prices, there are state and federal incentives to help offset these costs. In the future, battery prices continue to decline. Those incentives won't be as necessary. Further, the cost of fueling an EV with electricity is about half the cost of fueling a combustible vehicle with gasoline. And there are things that are being looked at right now, and I'll share with y'all this group. I did a survey. We set up a booth at the Taste of So, and I particularly wanted to see the response from the community in knowledge about solar. I mean, about EVs, whether they had an EV, do they plan on purchasing an EV in the next 5 years, and what were some of the challenges of getting into an EV. And I took that information and run some analysis on it. And, I think that there's a strong desire for our company to provide much more information about EV technology and the use of EVs, more conventional. The price of these cars have gone up, and to buy a new EV right now, probably anywhere, depending on the type of car it is. If it's brand new, might take 6 to even 12 months to get. But there are some thoughts about the incentives is possibly coming down the pipeline for EV panel upgrades to provide some incentives to customers for the installation of upgrading the panel to support the EV. There's incentives right now through the state. We have a rebate for income qualifying customers, that's a $4,000 rebate that if they buy an EV, that they can get a rebate. And then there's another rebate for $1,000 as well that's ran through the state. But as we roll out this in 2023, there's a lot of discussions about how this can be broadened. As you know, by 2035, the state is required, all new cars to be electric driven. And, the county, Los Angeles County and the city of Los Angeles has adopted resolutions to support the transformation from fossil fuels going to electric driven cars. We're supporting that. And, we have our goals as well as alignment with the county and the state, and county, city, and state goals. California is leading the nation right now in EV purchasing. 1 out of every 5 cars right now in the state is an electric vehicle. I'd like to see more of this in diverse communities, and that's a real strong focus that I'm wanting to take ownership of, not just from that standpoint, but all programs and services that we have available in diverse communities, that they get that information out on an ongoing and regular basis. I didn't answer number 12, and I'm going to provide a response back to Angela on question 12.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yeah. Number 13, and I'm just curious, and I wanted to ask this group the question, the genesis of this question. Give me a little bit of background on why this question was asked.
I think this is somewhat related, David, to what Jesse was talking about earlier, because I'm around the corner from her. She's on Athenian and I'm on Olympiad. And our area, it was, sometime between, I would say, 2008 to just a few years ago, literally like every Thanksgiving and Christmas, our system would go down. It was almost like whenever a large load came online, people are baking turkeys or getting ready for the holidays, we would have a major outage. And in talking with the guys that were here, I got some inside information that what they were doing was replacing a lot of that old conductor that had been there since the 1950s. So, naturally, I'm thinking, I know this is not the only part of View Park that has underground utilities. So I'm wondering if that has been done throughout the entire neighborhood now, so we can say that problem is gone, or are we just, I'm assuming more likely what's happening is the utilities is kind of waiting for things to fail and then replacing them on an as needed basis. So that's the genesis of the question. And I think that I started my career working for DWP. So that's why I asked those dumb questions.
Well, that was a very smart question, because I'll be honest with you, and I'll expose my naiveness, because I was trying to figure out what PILC was, and
paper insulated.
Yeah. So,
yep.
So I did explore that with the team, and that the response that I've got, I've highlighted there. I would also like to explore if there's additional conduit, because what happens a lot where we have outages, sometimes they've got cable and conduit, and finding a fault or damaged conductor in conduit underground, especially old infrastructure. Many times the topography or movement changes, and to do those repairs, even pulling out old cable, sometimes takes a lot longer than what it would normally be. So I want to follow up, and I will make sure I follow up on this question, John, to see if there's other areas that we're looking at doing replacement. I'd rather see us be proactive than reactive.
Agreed, and thanks for that, because we were actually impacted directly. 1 year, 2 days before Christmas, our service drop burned in the conduit, and they had to dig it up and rerun a new service directly to our residents. So thanks.
Okay. Question 14. What residents should be doing to promote energy efficiency and lowering their bills? There are multiple things that you can do in your house, from high, the efficiency of HVA systems as heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems. Older homes have season. They're called. It's a definition that it's a term that defines the efficiency of a unit, and it's called SEER, seasonal energy efficiency ratio. And the higher your SEER, the more efficient the unit is. However, the higher the SEER, the more it costs. But there's a lot of new technology out right now with packaged terminal units that are much more efficient than the older units. And I've always said, for folks that are going to go solar, do what you can do to reduce, to make your house more energy efficient, to reduce the amount of wattage, size of panels that you would need for your home. Power times time equal dollars. If you either side of the equation, that you reduce the time that you run equipment, the power needed to run equipment, and meaning that you have a much more efficient unit, or energy saving light bulbs or programmable thermostats on the power side, and then the time that you run the unit, it makes a big factor there. Many folks have freezers in their garage, and the heat in Southern California, and we're not seeing much change in our summers because of climate change. Your garage gets the heat. You pull your car in off after you get out of the freeway, the garage is already hot. Then you pull your car in, and your heat from your engine is emitting into that garage, and you got a standing refrigerator or freezer where your compressor is going to be working overtime to maintain temperature, desired temperature within that freezer. That's probably costing you about $60 a month in most cases, depending on the size of your freezer. If I personally don't really like to have a freezer in a garage that's not insulated, and you're not getting air or heat into that unit, it's just costing you quite a lot of money every month. Insulating your attics, a whole house fan is another efficient way of pulling out hot air to make your HVA system run a lot more efficiently. I've got a Nest thermostat, and I particularly put one on here at my house to have a little bit more control and monitoring the electric bill, because oftentimes people get cold, they get hot, and they keep turning it up and turning it down. And you know, I can monitor that from my location and make decisions on how, you know, energy is heating and cooling my house myself. But a Nest thermostat or one of the programmable thermostats that you can monitor and has a little bit more features about energy usage, I'd highly recommend. And I know that the utilities are often offering rebates. The gas company offers a rebate. I think Edison does as well, and DWP on the Nest, and participating in the peak programs. The state programs, I participate in those myself, but that certainly is a benefit. I think I pretty much covered that in my in the response. And what is the last question? The potential funding sources for available offset infrastructure, typically when a customer, okay. What are the potential funding sources are available to offset infrastructure improvements to connect homes and business to solar and store and sell power back to the utility? So basically my response was, you know, when a customer project drives need for upgrades to a circuit, the customer's responsibility to pay for the cost. They might qualify for an allowance. Again, local planning would know participating. And this goes back to your question again, Miss Jessie, because this, I don't necessarily think that this is answering your question, because it goes back to your first question again about the cost to install solar, running trenches, running conduit to your home, and definitely we'll follow back up with you. But I know your hand's up right now, so you probably have another question.
Well, this particular question was directed more towards Supervisor Mitchell's office. Given that SCE, there are realities about SCE and solar that you kind of tiptoe around, which it is not really to your advantage to lose customers off the grid. So my question, and you're not going to spend any of the money that's given to you to do that. My question is, what resources are available through the county, through the state, that are going directly to people for this that can be used, not that are going to it right now? Because one of the things that I've spent a lot of time looking at this. I mean, a lot of time, and nobody is thinking outside the box. Everybody is thinking, oh, if it's electricity, then the power, we'll just toss this over the fence to the power companies. So my question was really directed towards people, towards what resources do we have that are not being directed to the power companies that can be used for this. So it wasn't necessarily a question for you, it was a question for Supervisor Mitchell's office. Okay.
The question that I got from Angela ahead of time was slightly different than this. The short answer is that, to my knowledge, and maybe Isela knows more specifically, but to my knowledge, county departments specifically are not currently providing any rebates or credits or incentives for solar installation at present, but there are certainly state organizations that provide some incentives. And if you give me a little bit of time, I can pull that information for you.
Okay.
And you're shaking your head. What do you know?
Because my question, because as I said, nobody is thinking out of the box. If you go and drill down into incentives, number one, there's a huge push for income qualified installations, which really is not going to apply to very many people in View Park or Ladera Heights. I'm not saying it won't apply to any, but that's not where we are. And secondly, it's all about tax rebates and solar installation. It does not address this particular infrastructure problem. And I know that there are not programs in place today. My question is, is there a source of funding we can use to address this? The county is getting money through the state, from the feds through the state. How is it being used from what is the county looking at? And can we think outside the box and use it for the purposes we've talked about today?
There's a lot to probably unpack there. So when you say the county is getting money from the feds through the state, what are you referring to when you say that? We get tons of money, but not all, you know.
No. I looked at the Inflation Reduction Act because I'm looking hard to see where we can find funds to fix this problem. So, and it's really not very specific. It just says there's money going to the state. Well, if it's going to the state, how is the state distributing it? And what is the county's role in this distribution outside of the power companies? As I've said, everybody says, oh, it's electricity. That goes to PG&E, SCE, WP, and whatever. And then it's like, oh, we've done our job. Well, you haven't done your job because there's more to it.
So there are, between the Inflation Reduction Act and IIJA, which is the bipartisan infrastructure law, there are over 200 what the feds call notice of funding opportunities. Those all have tremendously different grant guidelines and intents of those grant programs. So the county's taken a look at all 200 plus of the notice of funding opportunities. As you stated, some of those are going to be allocated as competitive grants you apply for directly to the feds. Some of them will be dispersed to the state of California, which will apply its own guidelines and restrictions on how those fundings can go to, may even make them competitive. And then in a very small set of circumstances will be distributed directly to the MPOs or whatever, appropriate authority. So that might be Metro. If it's transportation related funding, that might be the county. If it's not, or if it's the appropriate dispersal agency. But as I understand, and again, I need to do a little fact finding, because when I prepped for this conversation, it wasn't specific to solar incentives more specifically. But as I understand, there isn't like a pot of money that is coming to the county specifically to incentivize solar installation for households. So certainly billions of dollars worth of funding, but what you're asking for is some kind of incentive, and appreciate like tax credits and rebates don't always work if you need help with the upfront costs. But as I understand, at least to the county, that's not how that money is flowing to us. But as I said, there are state programs that have pots of money to help you pay the upfront costs of solar. And I want to do a little work to pull that together. And I see Isel has gone off camera or on camera.
On camera. Yes, thank you. I'll just add a little bit to what Lily mentioned, but Ms. Jessie, you're correct. We currently do not have any funding support at any jurisdictional level for the infrastructure and its tax incentives that are put in place. And a lot of folks, even if they're homeowners, if they don't do the long form on their taxes, they can't leverage that incentive base. So it is, I would concur with you in that we need to be more creative about how we support the building out of the infrastructure. But right now the funding sources are not directed to that. But I think this is an important issue for us to look at and see how we could look at more of a community-centered infrastructure approach. And Lily, we can talk a little bit more. I can share with you. For those of you that I haven't had an opportunity to meet before, in addition to my portfolio being on homelessness, I'm Supervisor Mitchell, Senior Deputy on Housing, Homelessness, and Planning. Previous to joining her team, I worked on the East Side at a nonprofit organization doing affordable housing development, community organizing, and community wealth building. So there's some I'm joining you all today from the planning aspect of my portfolio. And this is an intersecting issue for Lily and myself. So your point is well taken, Ms. Jessie, and we will keep that in mind as we're looking at these different funding sources and opportunities. And for a long time, I've been of the belief of being able to build out more community-wide versus individual home by home. But that has not been the model when these types of programs have been put into place.
Okay.
So, Lily, if you're going to take a look at that, yeah, whatever you find, if you could funnel that back to me and I will distribute it. And you're right, the question that I actually asked you was a lot more general about funding and about the American Infrastructure Act. It was more general, and we're getting more specific questions today. But when you take a look, if you could just funnel that information back. And then the other question, Isela, regarding community, when you say that you were that it was generally looked at more of a broadly in terms of the community, are you talking about things like electric vehicle chargers and having a charging station in a community area? Is that the sort of thing you're talking about? Or are you talking about, you said rather than looking at individual? So
the way programs have historically been developed, whether it's like the solar panel installation, earthquake retrofitting, like the way those programs have been set up for, they're predominantly income tax incentives, so that individual people are looking at like, how do you tap into that, all kinds of programs, weatherization and stuff like that. So that is a non-creative way of looking at building out community-wide infrastructure. Maybe so for example, I haven't seen this in the States, but in other countries, they'll look at blocks, a neighborhood, and then they're like, okay, how do we work with the whole neighborhood to do these improvements? And they go on a block by block basis, right? So that's what I'm referring to, and kind of reinforces what Ms. Jessie brought up about the lack of creativity and how to address those. So it doesn't, and I'll say this, it doesn't necessarily shift the burden of costs completely away from if you're particularly a property owner, but it's a different way of approaching building out that infrastructure. On the earthquake retrofit side, I've been in some sessions where if I'm the property owner and I've done all the retrofits, but my neighbor has not, and an earthquake happens and there's a gas leak and stuff, it'll affect my property too, right? So if we don't have the neighborhood, a block by block approach, and there's only sporadic folks that do these improvements, it doesn't necessarily do the safety piece. On the solar side, being able to kind of expand also the potential benefit, because not every property is suited for solar and capturing. There's some buildings that we had in the organization I was at before, where we didn't have enough roof space, so we couldn't put it there, but maybe collectively with others. And then we had some other buildings that had a lot of roof space that was more than what we needed for that particular building. So why not share with others what we had? So that's what I'm referring to as like creativity. And the programs are set up as a individual by individual. I don't know how much we could impact in the time frame that Supervisor Mitchell would have here, but that's, I guess, sharing an idea and a thought that I've had in previous work with you all.
Mm-hmm. And we like it.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, while I have both you and Lily, if there was anything else that you would like to say with regards to this program or what the supervisor's office is doing in general with regards to infrastructure, please take that time to do that now, since I have you both on screen.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. I will just mention, since we're a minute from time here, that the supervisor, I think, has for the last 2 years been really leaning on our departments to apply for and be competitive for as much infrastructure funding at the state and federal level as possible, just given an unbelievable amount of need across a bunch of sectors. So not just clean energy, but transportation infrastructure, clean water infrastructure, road and bridge repair for failing infrastructure. So we have put to task the county CEO, put together a strike team that has evaluated all of the notice of funding opportunities across the state and feds, and then scored a list of about 500 projects so far based on the competitiveness of those notice of funding opportunities. I shared with Angela and hope that she can share with the rest of the group a link to add project ideas to what our infrastructure departments at the county are evaluating. And of course, Angela, you wanted to know specifically what we're doing for unincorporated areas. The vast majority of what we're pursuing are specific to the areas that the county is in direct control over. So for transportation, road, bridge, and regional park spaces, most of that is targeted to the unincorporated areas. Of course, we are the countywide flood control district, so that's countywide, and there are some nuances to that, but our focus is in leveraging the county's I think good relationships with the state and feds to maximize the amount of funding that's coming to the county. And we won't see the fruits of that because of the way that grant deadlines work. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this process. We won't see the fruits of what we think are really aggressive steps we've taken for several months to a year. But we've gotten ourselves, I think, really organized around some key principles related to sustainability, to equity, and to workforce and economic opportunities. And I think have a really clear plan of the priority infrastructure needs. But I will say, got a link that Angela can share with the group, if you don't mind, Angela, on submitting project ideas. And these don't have to be really detailed, don't spend a ton of time, but flag for us something that you're thinking about. We've pulled from
Oops, I think we lost Lily there. She's frozen.
Effort. Can you hear me?
No, she's back.
Sorry. So anyways, my internet connection is unstable, and that is a sign from the internet gods that I need to wrap it up, probably. But anyway, so want to be in touch with you all about that work, and I'm sure this won't be the last time.
Thank you, Lily. Isela, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, just thank you all for having us, and look forward to continue engaging with you.
Thank you. Yes, David.
Yeah, so I just want to add a couple things, and outside of us doing, providing safe and reliable electricity and upgrading our grid system, there are some things that we're doing on particularly in the D&I space at Edison, and I've shared with Angela. We have a scholarship program that I believe she'll redistribute it to the group, that we're going to be awarding students throughout our service system territory $50,000 scholarships for students going to STEM, science, life science related curriculums to college. So that timeline is coming up very quickly. So if you can share that with the group, that if you know any ambitious high school students that would like to apply for this program, please have them do so as quickly as possible. Secondly, I'm one of the co-founders of Edison's Black History Month event, and we'll be celebrating it again this year on February the 24th. It'll be the 24th first year that we've done this event, and it's very well received by community, as well as got national recognition as well. And that'll be on the 24th of this month. And I'll share the link. I believe I already did with you, Angela. If you can share it with others too, it'll be a virtual event again, and share that with others. There's a lot of information there. We'll be acknowledging community partners as well during this program. And then lastly, our line workers scholarship program that we started 2 years ago. And it was basically to address the shortage of African Americans in our skilled craft area. We awarded, through the first cohort in 2021, 12 individuals to go to LA Trade Tech, and each one of those individuals got a $25,000 scholarship to go to Trade Tech, and many of them are already working for Edison today. The next cohort started in 2022, same 12 number of individuals that we gave scholarships to, and they both were African American in first and second cohort. We have one African American female, which we were glad to see part of this line workers scholarship program. And you know, these are great jobs. These are really good jobs. Once they finish their certification and become apprentice groundmen, the salaries are really good, and it's a long career for these individuals. So I was really glad to see that. This commitment is over 5 years of $1 million that Edison has put into this program. So I'll share that with you as well, Angela, and have I think enrollment will be coming up pretty soon. But other programs and services like our medical baseline, the websites that you can look up information about SCE, I'd highly encourage the folks attending this call to sign up for my Edison account and share that with others as well. That's pretty much, I'm wrapping up my conversation as well.
Okay, and then David, if you wouldn't mind resending me the Black History Month information, because I don't think I have that. I have the 2 scholarship information, I think, but the Black History Month, if you could resend that to me, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I just sent it to you. I don't know.
Did you? Oh, you just now? Okay.
Yes, in your inbox.
Yep, I have it. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wrap it up. We're now at 11:38, so we're about 8 minutes over, but I really appreciate our speakers today. David Ford, thank you so much. The information that you have presented to us is extremely helpful, and the discussion was extremely engaging and informative. And we look forward to you touching base with Miss Jessie and Mr. Burkhart for those meetings, and also for the information that you're going to be sending me directly that I will distribute to other members. And also Lily and Isela, thank you both for attending the meeting today and for providing the information that you did. Again, extremely helpful and very engaging. And on the, I will send out the link that you sent to me, Lily. And if there's any more information that you guys want to provide to us, again, if you send it to me and I'll distribute it. Want to thank the committee members, Mark Walker and Jesse. Really extremely great meeting today. Both of you who helped put it together, couldn't have done it without you. And then the other land committee members, John and Tony, thank you. And of course to our president, Daryl Grayson, thank you. And then Daryl, I'll turn over to you if you want to have any wrap up comments.
Hey, just thank you. I don't want to keep anybody any more additional time, so I think you covered everything. I'll just reiterate my thank yous to everyone for participating, in terms of the members for being here. So I appreciate that. You have your hand up?
I do. One other thing, David Ford has graciously said that if there are other meetings or more information that we want to have from him, that we could schedule another meeting. So appreciate that, David, just letting the membership know. And also letting the membership know this is one in a series. Mark had suggested that we have a meeting with AT&T, and I've already touched bases with them. So in the coming months, we'll be having on fiber optics and insulation. So we'll be having a meeting with them going forward at some point in the future. So this is kind of what land use is doing. So if you have any interest in working on the land use committee, please send your information to info@UHA, and we certainly would love to have you on the committee because you see we're doing a lot of work and we could use help. So thank you so much. Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah, I just want to add one last thing. If anybody on this call is part of a nonprofit organization that has a strong emphasis on environmental, STEAM, emergency response preparedness, there are some criterias that we have in our grants that we provide to within our service territory. I'd love to talk to you about that to see if there are some potential opportunities for your nonprofit organization.
All right, sounds good. And Isla, we're gonna get it right. Don't worry about it. All right, I'm good, Angela. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and we'll see you on the other side of our next meeting, right? General meeting's coming up on January 21st. Let me just say that we'll be sending out a notice about that as well. So make sure we send out a save the date, but we'll be sending out a specific agenda soon on the January 21st general meeting for our first meeting of 2023. Thank you for participating, and everybody have a wonderful Saturday.